Okay, you look like Ted Lasso.
I think I'm gonna just keep this.
Getting better.
I'm gonna keep this.
Yeah, keep it and play it like completely straight. Just yeah.
Hello, everybody. All right, I found a good nebula background. Give me a second. Just stop. Yeah. See, got a nebula background.
Yeah.
Nice.
Perfect.
Perfect.
Yeah.
That is perfect. I love it.
For listeners, I have a picture of Nebula from the MCU in my background. So it's a Nebula background.
That's really meta. I love it.
You're welcome.
So this is going to be a totally normal recording where we're not going to be silly at all.
Not at all.
No, it's not.
Hmm?
I mean, that is kind of normal for us.
When does that ever happen? Like,
damn contradiction is what that is.
they tend to be more of a shit show when we have a new friend, because it's fun and it's exciting. And
Hi, friends.
hello, puppets.
Howdy, y'all.
And welcome to Muppets, Sex, and Trauma. I'm Sara Ezzat. I make the Costume Codex videos on YouTube.
I'm Jack Kramme, editor / right-hand man for Passion of the Nerd and editor for Chipperish Media.
And my name is Josh Gosdin, and tonight I might not be the biggest Star Trek nerd in the room.
And that's enough. And we have a guest.
Hello. Hi. Should I introduce myself? Is that how
Yes,
how
please.
that goes?
Come on.
I am Jessie Gender. I am also a Star Trek fan. It's probably the best way to introduce myself. But yeah, for those to give the quick introduction, for those of you who have heard of me, I do the YouTubes. I make videos about social and political issues, the nerddoms and geekdoms, mainly Star Trek. If you're a big Trekkie, check out my Sex and Star Trek: The Next Generation video. It's 5 hours of me ranting about sex and Star Trek. So that's there for you. So
And
that's
it's excellent.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah, no, that's who I am, and that's what I do. I make videos about politics and transgender issues and social issues and things like that, generally through a nerdy lens. Not always, but always through some sort of pop culture-y kind of discussion.
As relevant as it tends to be in these kinds of discussions.
Exactly. It's almost as if science fiction and nerddom isn't really about the future, but about us today.
Yes.
And
Wait, really?
Oh, that was so
I'm
perfect.
shocked.
And your experience with Farscape?
So I actually had not watched any Farscape up until about 2, maybe 3 years ago, basically right towards the beginning of the pandemic. And then my friend Vera Wild, who runs the Council of Geeks channel, was like, "You haven't seen Farscape? Well, that we need to change that." So she and I actually did a podcast very similar to this one called What the Frell, where we actually went through and watched the entirety of the series. She had already seen it. I had not. We sort of gave our opinions from that. And so now I have officially seen all of Farscape. We recently finished up that rewatch, and we moved to now Babylon 5, which sort of inverts the equation, where I have seen all of Babylon 5, she has not, and so now we're in season 2 of that show. So I have now officially seen all of Farscape, but it was only very recently, so within the past 2 or 3 years. So
What's the name of your Babylon 5 podcast?
Jumpgate, the Jumpgate podcast.
Okay,
yes.
good deal.
And that one's interesting because I think it's just evolved into Vera just despising Franklin with each and every episode,
Which is appropriate. He's
he's very skeezy.
Yeah. I don't know. I have a hard enough time keeping a straight face with these guys for the spoilers. I don't know how you do it for Babylon 5 because
it's difficult. We've also, that podcast has also become a thing of us like kind of messing with each other because for example, she and I just kind of take the piss out of each other the entire time, as it sounds like you do here, but I do a spoiler minute on that podcast where at 1 minute at the end of the episode she takes off her headphones and I just talk really quickly about all the spoilers for the show because you kind of need to with Babylon 5, but then she will fuck with me. And she there was one point where she started like sensually eating a banana Well, I was like, when I was trying to do the spoiler minute, but now because she can't hear me, I have been like saying things about her during the spoiler minute so that she's going to listen back to it and just hear all these things. And actually, it's been mostly nice things. I say like very sweet things about her. So she's going to go and expect really terrible things. It's going to be very nice. Anyways, that's the fun part of it.
We can't do stuff like that here because we put it on YouTube.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, unfortunately. Yeah, she
Oh, I mean, we could. It's probably not advisable.
Okay, so we are actually here to talk about one of the best bottle episodes in the history of television. Crackers Don't Matter. So yes, I totally gave away.
Don't matter.
My opinion. Crackers Don't Matter was written by Justin Monjo and directed by Ian Watson, both regular Farscape staff. We join the crew of Moya as they are leaving a commerce planet. It was a hasty visit because Scorpius had placed wanted beacons advertising for their capture. Aeryn brings one of the beacons on board for study. Along with the beacon, they've acquired a new passenger, Traltix, who promises he can provide Moya with a cloaking device in exchange for a ride through a pulsar field. John's a little bit suspicious.
Hell no, I don't trust him. Do I look stupid to you? No, please, don't answer that question.
Oh, and they've also picked up a whole lot of dried food rectangles.
Crackers.
The whole crew seems to be suffering from a serious case of PMS, pulsar magnified stress. They're getting short-tempered and anxious, and since the uncharted territories lack chocolate and Midol, they're white-knuckling through it. After all, Traltix says the pulsar affects only lesser species, certainly not advanced, intelligent folks like us. No effect here, just a smidge of paranoid delusions and just a skosh of violent outbursts. Everyone accuses everyone else of stealing crackers and forming plots. Well, everyone except Zhan, who is in her own private world with the pulsar light. John is half aware that something is going very wrong.
That people are starting to act a little strange.
That he's starring in his own personal shining, complete with invisible friends. Scorpius in a Hawaiian shirt.
Then we'll have pizza and margarita shooters.
Pilot, on the other hand, has been talking to Traltix, who's got him wondering if he likes the crew and starting to question his life choices.
I'm sorry, John. I cannot do that.
Meanwhile, could Traltix borrow a few more DRDs for his special project? Thanks so much. Eventually the crew come to blows, Aeryn and John exchanging gunfire, and John ties up the crew for a housemates meeting. At gunpoint.
I need you to understand that crackers don't matter.
He points out that Traltix is responsible. He's messing with Moya, and that's what's making them crazy. He's less affected, obviously, because humans are superior.
Says who?
Actually, no, John. It's because his human eyesight is crap. But maybe his human deficiency will make him the right man for this job.
Excellent. We're gonna let Blue Eye save the day. We better come up with a very good plan.
With a bile-covered cloak of invisibility, a piece of Aeryn's prowler, and Dargo's quilta-blade, our knight errant is ready to save the day.
We are going to die.
Amazingly, they don't die. Only Traltix does. The day is saved, but as they come back to themselves, they recognize that some things can't be unsaid or undone. Though at least some can apologize, and others forgive.
Not yet.
So just want to double check really quickly. Not everyone here has seen the entirety of the show, right?
No, they have seen up until this episode.
Okay, then I will.
Yeah.
Okay, I have to refrain from certain things. Cool.
Yes.
You must also have a poker face like Sara.
You will know eventually.
I have a dreadful poker face, but I just don't explain
She really does.
what I'm.
It's terrible.
I'm just
It's
laughing
getting
at
better.
everything.
I'll say this because Sarah, you'll commiserate with me. This one is particularly hard to do this with. Yeah. Anyways, we'll leave it there.
So, initial thoughts?
I fucking love it. This was the most fun I've had watching this show. Loved it. Hands down. Favorite episode to date. Freaking loved it.
I had a good time with it as well. It had a good Farscapian kind of subversion for me. The reveal of Traltix on the fucking ceiling was fantastic. And then the tone shift into like just straight comedy for the last act and a half was perfect and hilarious.
I love this episode because going back to this, having now finished the series, I forget this is like during Crichton's like super manic phase, like post the chair at the end of season 1, where his brain is kind of like all over the place, and so he just has this like energy at the beginning of season 2 and throughout season 2 that I just love. And you get to really see it here. He's just like off kilter the entire time, and then everyone else kind of joins him. So I love it. And like this, for me, this isn't my favorite episode of the series, but it's definitely up there. And it is one that Vera put is really succinctly is like, this is the best show people what Farscape is episode. Where it's like, if like someone's like very cold on Farscape, is like, I'm not sure if I should get into it. You show them this episode because it's fairly isolated, but you kind of get everyone's relationship, but you kind of have a lot of fun with it, and it goes over the top. And it's not the craziest episode of Farscape, because there are some crazy ones that you'll get to, but it is definitely one that like sort of highlights all the things that I love about Farscape. So it's just a perfect encapsulation of the show.
Yeah, I think of it as kind of in the same league as like Band Candy on Buffy. It's like this is
I see that
Farscape as its post Farscape, and it's just fucking awesome.
Yep.
It also reminded me within Farscape, reminded me in tone of what was the Primary Color Universes episode?
Oh, that was Through the Looking Glass.
Episode.
Through the Looking Glass. Yeah, thank you.
Same director.
It reminded me. Perfect. It reminded me of that episode in tone and also in kind of like story structure, and in Crichton being the one to run around and bring everybody together. And I had a similar fun time with that one too. So I really like this one.
They actually describe that as those are two bookends. Like that one brought everyone together, and this is sort of trying to split everyone apart. Yeah, it is the same. The same director. I think maybe the same writer. I know it's Justin Monjo, who was the same writer that we were panning last week.
See, every writer can make good and bad. Make good and bad.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's true. I really like this kind of story trope, if that's what you could call it, where the sanity of the characters slowly degrade to the point where they're like mistrusting and full of suspicion. It's been done a million times, but it's always just fun when it's done well. It makes me think of like The Thing, even though that was about like a shapeshifter, but it's a similar kind of paranoia, and I really like it. It's fun.
This is why I love Farscape though, is because like whenever they do because Farscape at its best, whenever it does tropey stuff, it always zigs where it should have zags. Exactly. And like I love that this one it all hinges upon like, because normally in most science fiction it'd be like, well, the humans are the special ones. We're all like very good. Like we're just there's something a little bit extra about being human. And here it's just like, nah, he's the deficient one, and that's why he's just a really bad species. We're just a crap species, and that's why we can actually survive the day. So
we're good at watching football.
Yeah, we are good at watching football. That is, except for me, I can't do that. We were literally before we were recording, we were talking about sports. I am not good at watching football, so I guess I'm just pretty much useless as a human, to be fair. So I don't disagree with that.
We're good at watching sci-fi.
Yeah, that I can do.
I'm actually pretty terrible at watching sci-fi. I try. I'm the least acquainted with the genre here.
But you are the horror fan, and there's a lot of shiningness in
there
this.
is,
Yeah.
Which, Crichton, of course, is self-aware of. He knows what he's doing.
He's always self-aware.
Yeah. I think that's one of my favorite things about Crichton. Is just it's like he knows. I'm not sure he knows what story he's in, but he knows that
he knows he's in a story.
Yeah.
Speaking of Crichton, I loved Ben Browder's performance throughout the entire thing, but especially the ice cream bit. Holy shit, that was just mental. Like, I'm pretty sure the look on my face was very similar to Aaron's at the end of the scene. It's just he was equal parts hilarious and unnerving. Loved it. So good.
Ben Broder, again, I was saying before, like he just has this, like, especially in this part of the season, but he always kind of brings this energy, but especially in season 2, he like has this sort of like over the top manic energy that he brings that again comes after like the Aurora chair where he's kind of been like tortured, and so he's kind of like just really traumatized. And sometimes that can be dark energy that he brings to it, but here it's just like over the top fun. And I love seeing him just being slightly unhinged, and then just going more and more unhinged as they go through to the point it's like humans are superior at the end. It's wonderful.
Him saying humans are superior while wearing that Ren Fair cosplay
Yes.
RPG out, like that was peak Farscape comedy gold for me. And the smash cut to the five of them against the wall, just all being like, while he was like waving us, like I was just on my couch.
And the humming of the Ride of the Valkyries was a Ben Browder ad lib.
Oh, that's a wonderful Ben Browder. He's amazing.
Just give him an award.
Yeah.
He goes, it is puke.
Yeah, and I love that cosplay that they gave him. That outfit is just so perfect because it's like baby's first cosplay. It's just like a very bad outfit, like it's just like a sheet that he's wearing. It's like it's just like someone that you like a 12-year-old that's like cosplay, and you're like, yes, please. You like encouraging them, but it's like, oh, you still have a lot to learn, my dear.
He kind of reminded me of from Xena, the funny guy.
Joxer?
Yeah.
That's never seen Xena. So, yeah.
Ted Raimi? Raimi's character? Yeah, okay, yeah.
It's funny you mentioned Xena, because I was definitely getting Lucy Lawless vibes from Claudia Black in this episode.
Oh, yeah.
Like, as she got more and more unhinged, she was tapping into her warrior princess.
I need to see Xena because I've never seen it, so.
It's good.
I'm going to call it the avocado face mask. That was my favorite part. I like that. I have 3 older sisters, so I've seen that shit a lot.
We finish with favorite parts.
I also love it.
There's a lot of favorite parts.
There's so much favorites.
No,
yeah.
That wasn't my favorite. We'll get to my favorite when we get there. Holy crap.
Oh my God.
Okay, so shall we?
That was my favorite part of the outfit.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
I love the goggles. It's just.
I was just say the goggles are my favorite.
It's just, yeah. So shall we talk character development? Shall we do our section there? And how about John is, well, we've already started on John. So yeah, any other thoughts on John's character in this?
Like I said, I do like it that it just shows that he's unhinged from season 1 going into season 2. But then also like that he's kind of the de facto leader of the group at certain points. But I also really like that it just showcases like there's elements of him being good at it, but also he's not perfect at it. And just kind of like he can pull everyone together, but ultimately it takes him a lot more work than like say a Picard, for example, would be able to do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I love the moment of him figuring out that Pilot shouldn't also be affected. Like that was a really good, like there were a couple of twist reveals in the episode, and that was a really good one. That we as the audience were already in on the secret that something else was wrong, but getting to watch him like put it together. I always like it whenever they science shit.
I know I complain about this every single time, and I shouldn't because he's the protagonist, but Crichton saves the day again. Like, come on, like. You're an ensemble, like, for crying out loud. I don't know. I like action movies. I like action heroes. So I don't know why it bothers me, but it's just, oh, okay, Crichton, you saved everybody. Yeah, cool, whatever.
We gotta have a straight white boy save the day. Come on, that's how it always works, right?
Exactly.
Well, yeah, that's the thing. Yeah. I like. For example, I love Buffy the Vampire Slayer because it's a team effort. Everybody plays the role, but no, Crichton's just gonna kick the door in and save everybody. Like,
well, everyone contributes at least to his costume at the end there, so there's that.
That's a good point. That's a good point. Yeah.
Which that was a beautiful moment that we'll get to, but for sure the least believable part of the episode was that he won a fist fight with Aeryn.
Yeah, they had to not show that on camera because we're not gonna just
I believe it.
Smash cut to him dragging her, and I was like, okay, no, you lost me.
Okay, so
I'm out.
So since we've been talking about things unhinged, Dargo. We have to talk about the Dargo and Rigel scene.
Oh, that kind of freaked me out when he's like stuffing his face full of crackers. I was legit taken aback. Like that was horrific to me.
Me as well. It was a bit dark. It was like that was hard to watch, to be honest. Though I do like it in the sense. I do like that I have that feeling because it just showcases how much you care for Rigel, despite Rigel being a puppet. You know, and also an asshole.
Yeah, no, I love it because I hated it so much. Yeah, and that's the horror fan in me talking. Like, freak me out, and I'm gonna love it.
They had to reshoot it to bring it back a little bit because it went too dark the first.
What?
Yeah,
I can see that. I mean,
it's
too dark.
Yeah, it's dark, but what it made me think of is like it. You know that Jesse, I am the biggest Dargo fan. Like, I have a crush on Dargo.
Oh, Dargo's great. Yeah.
So, like, I'm always the Dargo girl. And I just, like, thinking about this episode, like, was making me think about how much he must have to restrain himself. Sort of like but also how vulnerable Rigel really is. So it's kind of an interesting... Yeah. He
is a very vulnerable dude who could easily just be killed very simply. Yeah, no, it's an interesting sort of thing. And yeah, like I said, it's interesting they say they had to pull back because again, I could easily see the actor just have gone because he is playing so over the top, just being like, oh, it's a puppet. I'll just go crazy with it. And he has to pull it back because it's like, no, this is a character we care about. Please don't be too abusive.
Please stop. Yeah.
Also, that puppet is worth more than you.
Yeah, right.
That's wow. Yeah.
Not inaccurate.
So the while I enjoyed and was like actively cracking up for the last act and a half of the episode, the tone shift was jarring and was difficult to keep up with, and it literally nearly did bounce me out of the episode. To go from
I can see that.
The Dargo and Rigel scene and the Zhan and Chiana scene, and like Scorpius in a Hawaiian shirt, but also Scorpius just being there and like kill, like it was.
Ooh, yeah.
It was giving me big horror vibes in The Shining, and then when it jumped and it started to be funny, I was a little taken aback, and I was a little like, I don't know if you've earned this funny from this like horror shit that you were just doing, and having them all cathart and try to apologize to the other at the end really helped hold the episode together for me. But I sometimes struggle with those kinds of tone shifts just in general.
Yeah,
it's hard to follow.
My jaw legit dropped when Scorpius's hologram started talking to.
That was
John.
so good.
I was like, "Holy shit, that is amazing!" And I'm glad that this episode was in season 2, where they had a bigger budget to make that look good. Because if you tried to half-ass that on a small budget, it just wouldn't have looked as good. I don't think.
Yeah, it is a great moment when Scorpius just starts talking to him.
When he turns, like that got me.
They don't know how crazy they are, John.
It reminded me. Do you remember that episode of The Simpsons where Homer and Mr. Burns get snowed in a log cabin and they go like crazy and take off their clothes and put them on like snowmen or something? It sort of reminded me of that. Yeah. The one thing I wanted to say about Dargo, and this is the nittiest nitpicks, and it absolutely does not matter, but I found it slightly out of character that Dargo was the one that invited Treltix on the ship. I thought this like hardened warrior would be a little more suspicious. It would have made more sense to me if like Rigel did it, but I don't care. Like it ultimately does not matter. Like they had to get him on somehow. So
I think we firmly established him as himbo. So,
Yeah,
but yeah, you're right. It's not. Somebody has to fall for Trollstick's bullshit, but maybe it shouldn't be.
And
I also could like toss it as like a possible ableist thing on Dargo's part, considering that Trollstick is blind, and Dargo being kind of having a warrior mindset might be like, oh well, because he's blind, he's less of a threat. So you could probably put it as like a sort of an like you could maybe like again, I don't think it'd be something like Dargo would like articulate or even say it that way, but it might be just a part of his upbringing that's sort of an unconscious thing that like might be a sort of subtle unconscious ableism that it might
they
be
definitely alluded to that. They had John allude to that at one point. But also the other thing that I was going to say to that is the nature of what exactly was happening to the crew was ambiguous up until the reveal that it was the light. But if you go back in the episode, people started getting wackadoo before the light. But like before he started turning up the dimmer in his room, and he never actually shined a light on Pilot. He was just talking to Pilot. So it tracked to me that Trollstick was already exuding his psychic whatever, that Dargo was just like, yeah, sure, whatever, sure, I'm confused, I'll take him aboard.
That's true. Yeah, that as well.
It didn't strike me as himbo or out of character. It just struck me as another illustration of Trollstick's abilities.
Speaking of the light, I just always still love every time Zhan's light orgasms come up. Like every time her light orgasms come up, I
was like, here we go, sungasm again.
Private number 4061.
Every time it comes up, I'm here for it.
I liked it much better this time than in the Desert Planet episode. Till the blood runs clear.
Yeah, because that one is like her photogasms are somewhat like they're a pain in the butt because it's like distracting them from what they need to get done. Whereas here it's just like part of the insanity going on.
Yeah.
Well, see, that's the thing. I had the thought, and it ended up being wrong. But I was thinking during the episode that maybe Trollstick did it on purpose to take her out of the fight, so to speak, to distract her. I don't think that was the case, but I did have that thought because it did distract her last time.
Well, I don't think it started that way, but somebody, I think it was John, actually like explained it to him, and Trollstick was like, "Oh, really? You don't say it?" And then just left the light on.
Yeah,
I do love like I sorry because I just watched Babylon 5 for my other podcast, and it just reminds me of like the times like, oh, this is before streaming, where like every time like a thing like that comes back up, they have to point at the audience and be like, as you know, she has photogasms, just to like remind the audience too of like why she's going off like that. So there's always those like weird moments. Because Babylon 5, I just watched an episode where it's like they had to have like a flashback in the middle of the episode to like a previous episode to remind you like this is what happened before. Because they weren't back in like the 90s or whatever. They don't like they weren't used to like people remembering things week to week. As you know, Zhan likes orgasm in light. The best like as you know ever.
Yeah.
But I did enjoy that like for it's fun for Zhan to be just like, I'm going to be a selfish bitch. And I'm just like I'm just gonna take care of myself. I don't care about the rest of you. It's an interesting look from her that I like.
It's also nice too, like even though it is played as somewhat like comedic, I do like that like it is like a woman getting to have pleasure on screen, which you especially like in this area, you don't like get to see, especially by herself too. Like you can maybe sometimes in this area see a woman having pleasure if it's like, oh, like a dude, like them having sex or whatever. Like I think of like Jetsia and Worf, like that sort of thing in Deep Space Nine. But here it's just like, nah, she's off on herself. Just she doesn't need anybody. She's just gonna have a good time on her own, which again you don't really see.
5 pulsars worth of light. Like she was just not there the whole episode.
Yeah, Virginia Hay had a great episode. She just got to lay there and like smile and roll around and
like again, while it is played comedically, it's not like played over sexualized, which is also really cool. It's not like look at how sexy her orgasms are. Like
that's why I liked it much better than when the blood runs clear, because a lot of the I guess female empowerment moments in season 1 felt fan servicey and like they were written by male writers. And like there was one point where she was walking through the desert and then just like plops back on the sand in that episode that I was just going like, okay, All right. We'll let it go.
Yeah.
In this episode, it was top down integrated into the plot. Everybody just kind of accepted and kind of embraced it. Like John and Dargo's, oh, great. Towards the beginning cracked me up a little bit. And it was much better, like you were saying, Jesse.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not male gazy at all. It's just
The 12-year-old boy in me liked some of the orgasm jokes though, like Pilot. She's probably just enjoying the pulsar light. Like it just made me giggle.
I'm amused.
I like a good sex joke.
I'm amused by all the men being like awkward around the fact that there's a woman.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was pretty silly.
And then Gianna at the end is just like, you looked like you were having so much fun.
Yeah. There were lots of little like indirect jokes, like they stop just before they and that's the joke, which is I enjoyed it.
Yeah, we definitely got Muppet sex and trauma in this one.
Absolutely.
All three.
Yes, we did.
Get the trifecta.
We got Dargo staggering away from shoving the crackers into Rigel's mouth. Was also good Dargo moment, and the like bookending that with the apology scene between him and Rigel at the very end of the episode. Like, look at how far these folks have come. Look at how far these people have come. It was so lovely.
Remember, at the end of DNA Mad Scientist, he said that Luxons don't apologize.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's a nice little. So it's growth. It's growth.
Yeah, growth. But while we talk about the male gazy stuff, we do need to talk about the scene with Shiana, which
the one part of it that I despise.
I did, and it's interesting. They filmed the entire. I was reading the behind the scenes stuff. They filmed the entire episode, and then the director was feeling that they hadn't gone dark enough. That they needed to do something that was genuinely unlikable, and I get that. But why is always the go-to for we need darker, we need scarier is let's assault a woman? And
I think the scene with Dargo and Rigel was dark enough. Like, I don't see why it needed to be darker than it already
especially
was,
since later
to
in
be
the
honest.
episode where like the tone is shifted more towards comedic at that point.
This is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
This is what I'm saying.
I don't understand why it was necessary to go darker, because I honestly see this whole episode as more of a comedy than anything else. It's supposed to be fun and silly. That's that was the point for me.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm fine with like things shifting from horror to comedy, and I think like this is the point where it's like let me put it this way: if this show had been made today, like if this had been made in 2022, that scene would have been like, and nope, I'm done with the episode, and like just gonna be like, nope, I can't say really anything good about it. My brain can somewhat process that scene as like, well, it's not good. I fucking despise it, and I'm really pissed off about it. It doesn't make it good in any way, shape, or form. But I can at least put it like, well, it was at least the 90s, and that's not to excuse it, but at least it lets me compartmentalize it a little bit more. And allow myself to like sort of move past it to enjoy the rest of the episode. Whereas if this had been made today, I've been like, and nope, we are not accepting that in any way, shape, or form in terms of like letting that pass as like a thing that's acceptable to make today. But yeah, no, I agree with you, Sara, that it's like it's always just like, let's just traumatize the woman. And it just does such a disservice to like all of your characters when you do something like that, because it plays it not only into like making the woman this victim as well, but also like plays into this idea that like men, and specifically your main character, is just like one moment away from like being a predator, a sexual predator, and it just like posits all men and is like this sort of like all men are potential rapists sort of thing. And it really just like that in and of itself is a deeply harmful idea.
It reminded me of an episode of Angel from season 3 called Billy. That put one of their main characters, Wesley, in a similar situation, and was fully like, wasn't an insert. It was the activity was integrated into the plot, into the story arc and all that kind of stuff, but it was still based on this really like you were saying, Jesse, just this really just toxic perspective of, stripped away from any sanity or inhibitions. This is what men might become.
Mm-hmm.
And it damages relationships, and it puts, in that episode anyway, it put the woman in the position of having to reach out and repair the relationship with her, admittedly under the influence, assaulter. But in this episode, what really got me was that just the episode before, we built an entire plot around how highly Chiana regards John, and how much she trusts him, and how much she depends upon him for emotional support, and that him snubbing her because he was busy tinkering under the hood of his module or whatever it was enough for her to fly off and have a drug-filled semi-suicidal romp on a grave planet. And so to put those two characters specifically together in this situation really ground my gears, and I did not enjoy it at all. Especially because they didn't get a scene at the end.
Yeah.
Well, no, they did.
Well, yeah.
They got a scene where
she just shrugs it off.
Yeah. And I kind of understand her shrugging it off because she's Chiana, because she has been traumatized so much that trauma is her baseline.
Makes it worse.
So I can understand her saying that it's no big deal and like having that, but the writing shouldn't be co-signing that it's a no big deal.
Yeah. It just feels like a disservice to the character in a way. It feels cold and uncaring towards her. And I don't like that at all.
Yeah, I mean, like, it goes into like, so many things, exactly what you were saying, Sara, where like the writing is co-signing the scene. And I see it as somewhat, yes, it could be truthful to the character of like her having trauma. And so like she would say, yeah, it's no big deal, because it's like for her, it is something that she's experienced over and over and over and over and over again. And so it's just sort of like, well, she just sees this as normal. What should have been the case is John should have come in and be like, no, that wasn't acceptable. And I really do like, even though I was under the influence through no fault of my own, like I still don't take ownership of that. And I do deeply apologize. Like that should have been what should have happened. And if that had happened, I think that would have not only just been the writing, like taking responsibility for John doing that, but also would have been actually an interesting moment for Chiana having to like react to that. Like, oh, a person that she trusts is actually like coming forward and taking responsibility for something that she has never seen anyone else take responsibility for. It would have been an interesting growth moment on multiple levels. I think would have been really interesting, but unfortunately, it doesn't. And then this is how we get to like things where we see a lot of like people who watch shows from this era of television, who grew up on this era of television, thinking that it's like, this is okay because the writing excuses it by saying like, oh yeah, well, she said it was no big deal, so that means that it wasn't. And like not really understanding what accountability and responsibility is, because they weren't taught it in works of fiction and pop culture like this. And I'm not just putting this on Farscape; it was ubiquitous, which is why people were taught that that's the way that it should go, rather than it being like, no, this is bad. Actually,
that whether or not something that I did was a problem depends upon how the person I did it to reacts.
Yeah,
and it's horrendous.
And if they wanted to go darker, he could have threatened her without being rapey. Like just why was that the go-to device to do that? I don't know.
Because it's the easy one that it's like it's the easy one that like Sara was saying. Like it's just like, oh yeah, we need to go darker, so we'll have an assault. You know,
and
him throwing out like her sexuality at her kind of does fit in a sense with the way that everybody is acting, because everybody's throwing the worst insults at each other, but it shouldn't be coming from a rapey place. Well, like it's enough for him to call her a slut.
Shaming too.
And slut shaming is not okay. But I could understand that coming out the same way that he tells Aeryn she has a flat butt.
Yes,
and Aeryn calls him deficient. The same like sort of. Although I was not a fan of bringing up fat, as that was one of those. I hate that, but it happens. But yeah, like so him slut shaming would have been him being an asshole, and I think they wanted the darker was they wanted Crichton to do something unlikable. And I think it would have been unlikable enough for him to be slut shaming.
Mhm.
And that still would have required an apology because that's still a horrible thing to do. But it's not rape threatening.
Yeah.
Oh, slut shaming would have been perfect, I actually think, because it would have drawn upon like that same sort of like implicating like hating her, like this idea of this like a lot of prejudice coming out of her being someone who's overly sexual and that sort of thing. But then also wouldn't have implicated Crichton in like that sort of like men are always desiring sex thing. I think it would have negated that, and also like not had her be the victim of an assault. Like it would have drawn from the same thing that I think the show was like drawing from in terms of like get to that idea, but not gone so far that it would have been really disgusting and it had terrible implications for a lot of the characters. And it would have been unlikable too. And what's interesting too is you saying like their goal was to like make him do something unlikable, which I think is fine. But if you're going to like make the conscious decision to have your character do something unlikable, you have to recognize that it's unlikable within the text, and this doesn't really do it. Like they don't represent that it is an irredeemable thing. Even so
it's not unlikable, it's irredeemable.
It's irredeemable if he had done it under the auspices of his like own choice, and so like the only way that it is redeemable is because it's like he's under the influence of something that's not his control. And that still needs to be acknowledged and taken responsibility for, which
that's the hair to split, is the difference between fault and responsibility. You know, and conflating those two in the writer's room, you get scenes like this where because it wasn't John's fault, no one takes responsibility.
Yep.
But because it wasn't his fault, John still needed to take responsibility.
Yes.
And that's how you repair the relationship between two characters whose relationship is so emotional at this point.
And that's what we saw. Well, that's what we saw Dargo do with Rigel.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He didn't say, he didn't, go, it wasn't my fault. I wasn't in my right mind. He said,
He just said, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. He just like, it was clear in every moment of that performance that he was just devastated by what he'd done.
Yeah.
And totally accepted Rigel saying that he's not ready to forgive him.
Yeah.
Which is great. Yeah.
The rest of the Chiana stuff this episode was pure fun. I had a blast with it.
Yeah.
I did really love when like John comes in and like doesn't care about Zhan, and Chiana's like, you said he would care about Zhan. He didn't care about Zhan. So they're working together.
You want me to see the beacon? No, you don't. Now he doesn't want me to see the beacon. Yeah. I love Gigi Edgley.
Chiana's wonderful. One of my favorite characters on the show. If this show didn't have Aeryn, Chiana would be one of my favorites.
Yeah, but there is Aeryn. So let's talk about Aeryn.
There is Aeryn.
Who is my favorite character in the series.
I mean, the gun to her own head.
That was great.
Oh,
and I love how she laughs when she realizes.
It's like, look what you're doing. Oh, the settings too low.
That's
I also
how you
love
take a dark moment to make it comedic. That is perfectly how you take a dark moment to make it comedic.
And then that bit where John and Aeryn are having like their showdown, and they're trying to insult each other, but they find it funny. That was just great, so much fun.
Yeah,
I love it.
Yeah, there's just so much chemistry.
Like legitimately, Ben Broder and Claudia Black's chemistry is just so amazing, and it makes me upset that like we get them in Stargate SG-1, which I actually kind of like because they're not in a romance; they're kind of more friends, which I really enjoy. But I just like, I just want them back together in a thing one more time before before like they die, and then hopefully not for many years and decades down the line. But like, I want them back in one more thing.
They definitely have a bringing up baby kind of screwball comedy in this chemistry between the two of them that I really enjoy.
Also, as an aside, I just learned a week ago Claudia Black is going to be in a sci-fi movie, a science fiction movie, not a Sci-Fi Channel movie, a science fiction movie in the near future, like later this year. And I'm like so excited for it.
Good. I want to see her get more work. Like she gets a lot of video game work, but I want to see her on screen.
She works in voice acting a lot nowadays. But yeah, she's on screen. There's a movie she's going to star in that's coming soon. That's a sci-fi movie, so I'm excited for that. So
nice.
Yay.
I did also love how Aeryn immediately got in Dargo's face when he hits John. I thought that was really sweet.
That gave me good feelings in my heart.
Yeah,
when
same.
she jumped up, and it was nice.
Yeah,
warm fuzzies.
Yeah, if anyone's gonna shoot at him and punch him, it's gonna be her.
Exactly. That was a nobody messes with my boyfriend moment.
Yeah. Nobody puts baby in the corner.
Also that.
Oh, but speaking of people in a corner, we get some character development from Pilot this episode.
Yeah.
We never get to see Pilot step outside of himself. And I didn't realize that until this episode, but he's always this kind and helpful sort of guy. He serves as like the guardian from the crew. So to see him get like sassy and kind of mean was really fun. I really enjoyed it.
Scary. Like Pilot might have been the scariest character this episode.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And they also show like the way that he could kill them all with like there's one point where Rigel's like, well, how do you know that Pilot's not gonna like poison gas you or whatever? It's like you could murder them all pretty quickly if you wanted to. Mm-hmm. And I love that one scene where I forget his name, Traltix. He's like, just one question for you. Do you like these people? And Pilot's like, no, I don't think I do. He's like,
no, I don't think yeah.
They took off my arm.
Yeah, it's like fair.
I mean, if he wants to hold the grudge, I wouldn't blame him.
Passive aggressive Pilot is my favorite Pilot.
DNA mad scientist was on my mind a lot in this episode. Yeah, because of that moment where they dismembered one of their friends, which is the only way to characterize it. And in this episode at the end when they're all apologizing and I had a brief moment. Like, so John turns to Zhan at the very end and it's like, I don't know if we can take it all back. And Zhan goes, maybe we can't. And I was like, you tore off someone's arm. You'll all be okay. The bar for shit to move past is quite high.
Josh, I love you so much, man. I know I say it every episode, but I love you so much.
But yes, I enjoyed seeing crazy Norman Bates Pilot. That was great.
Norman Bates Pilot.
No, I think he was doing Hal there. Definitely, there was Hal references.
Oh, yeah. There was definitely like, I'm sorry, John, I can't do that,
John.
Yeah.
I can't let you do that, John.
I caught that homage.
Yeah, I have this Uncharted Territories Farscape guide, which is a fan one, unofficial, and they tend to account for all the pop culture stuff. Oh. And they literally went, yeah, there's too many to there's too many to count.
My favorite one though is when Scorpius starts head inside John's head. Scorpius starts quoting Shakespeare, and John's like, don't quote Shakespeare. I hate it when villains quote Shakespeare. It's like such a great little meta reference.
Yes, I love that line. Because Chang is my favorite of the
Chang
Klingons.
is so good.
Yep. Oh yeah. Oh, of course.
Cry havoc and let's slip the dogs of war.
I know what a Klingon is.
We have to show you Star Trek 6 at some point. We have to show you
the best.
Okay.
It's the best one of all of them, in my opinion. But like, if you want villains quoting Shakespeare, Star Trek's got you covered.
But I love that because he's a manifestation of John's mind, and John has watched Star Trek. John has absolutely watched Star Trek.
Oh yeah. And so there's tons of Star Trek references all over the place in the show.
So Scorpius is making a Wrath of Khan reference because that's a line from Wrath of Khan, and then John is making an Undiscovered Country reference in response to it.
Mm-hmm.
I was very happy.
It's really good. It's lovely.
Yeah.
Scorpius in the Mambo shirt. Can we talk about that for a second?
Yes.
My God,
I don't know about you guys, but over here in the early 2000s, those Mambo shirts were freaking everywhere. So when I saw that, I literally squealed, I laughed, I cried. So good, so
I just
good.
love alien gimp man in a Hawaiian shirt. It's great.
Yeah.
He wants
like,
pizza
kill
and
her,
margarita
then we can have
shooters.
pizza and
Yes.
margarita shooters.
delivering the phrase margarita shooters with the same like veal and venom that he did in the Aurora chair when he was like, you have a memory that I'm going to get to, and he goes, margarita shooters.
I just love Scorpius making pop culture references is the best thing.
That bit was the thing that pushed this over into amazing for me. Like, hands down, my favorite episode. I fucking love it. It was so good.
That is a classic moment in the fandom. There are T-shirts with margarita.
I want that shirt.
Well, we'll see about your Christmas present, sweetie. Yeah, no, that is this is like a classic moment in the fandom that is absolutely beloved. And like I couldn't, you guys probably already knew that like this is an important episode. I couldn't hide that. I didn't tell you why. Yeah. But it's just because this is so loved. And the funny thing from the background story stuff is this was a last minute addition.
Really?
Yeah.
Really?
The another episode that's coming up has some elaborate sets. It was taking too long. They needed a filler. They needed a bottle episode, and they wrote this.
And this is one of the most beloved episodes in the series. Yeah.
Like this is, we talk about how Farscape is a seat of the pants writing thing entirely, which is, it's so funny to put it in opposition to Babylon 5, which was entirely planned. And well, we've got entirely pantsed here. That just, sometimes that means you go off with episodes that are kind of half baked, like the last one. And sometimes that means like somewhere out of nowhere, you pull off this.
Yeah,
that's amazing.
It's honestly getting like when I was younger, I used to always love I do love meticulously planned stories like a lot, like Babylon 5. But now that I've gotten older, there's a part of me that's like I kind of enjoy the bonkersness of just things that are written by the seat of the pants. Like comparing Deep Space Nine to Babylon 5. Like I love both of those shows; they're both great. But then Deep Space Nine, I just have a love for because then you get like the weird Ferengi episodes, or just strange like off the pants episodes of something that you see here in Farscape. Compared to Babylon 5, where like there is some comedy, but the comedy feels a little bit more stretched than like things that are like planned ahead. So I think that I kind of love seat of your pants writing quite a bit because it's just you get bonkers weird. Like you get a lot of half baked stuff, like you said, but you get bonkers.
Alama Rain, jump deep.
But even that, like you gotta love that sort of stuff because it's just become so memeable after that. Or like Threshold and Voyager because that was also stuff, and that like everyone hates on Threshold, but like come on, sex lizards, I love it. I'm here for it.
Star Trek's a wild time, Jack.
Yeah.
It sounds like it's sex lizards. Wow.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm incorrect. Sex salamanders. Apologies.
Yeah.
Sex salamanders.
Specific, Jesse. We have some specific.
Very specific.
I mean,
that sounds fancy now.
Josh finds a way to love every single iteration of Star Trek, no matter what.
As well. I mean, I defend Enterprise wholeheartedly. So
it is. Enterprise is much better in streaming.
Mm-hmm. Very much so.
Yeah. So it's interesting to know that this was tossed it into the schedule at the last minute because of the ominous warning that Traltix left us with as he was getting stabbed. Of like, my people will come for the Leviathans. And we've had a couple of foreshadowing moments that have come up so far. The destruction of the Zelbinian, was one of them for sure way back when, and Scorpius not being a one-off villain, but now the main arc villain. So I'm curious if they toss it in there in a very like B movie sci-fi kind of a riff, which a lot of this also felt like, or if they toss it in there and then later on they're like, maybe we should do something with this. So if we see more Traltixes, I'm looking forward to it.
I'm so it's so fascinating because like I'm now getting to talk again. I'll try and keep it spoiler. No spoilers, obviously, but watching this the second time, having now finished the series, there is things that are foreshadowed in this episode that I'm like, oh, that's amazing that this is where that starts.
Yeah.
And listeners who have seen Forward will know what I'm talking about. But I'm like, oh, that's wonderful. And at the time I had no idea. So it's interesting hearing your reactions to this episode because you have no idea and I love it.
I think of it as dropped threads. Like, because I think especially if you're doing seat of your pants writing, you just drop threads and some of them can be picked up later and sometimes you never know what will be picked up later. But it's like rather than planned foreshadowing. And also like JMS, who wrote Babylon 5, had a saying that like, if things work out, it's prophecy. If it doesn't, it's theme.
yeah. Well, I mean, my favorite drop thread, if you want to talk about it, is like Deep Space Nine is Odo and his people. Because like that was sort of dropped in the pilot. It was like Odo's like, well, my people might have been through the wormhole. And then they sort of built up the Dominion in season 2 of that, and then everyone's seen the Deep Space Nine, right? Or does anyone care about spoilers? I should have just realized.
Jack hasn't seen hardly any Star Trek.
I haven't, but I mean,
anyways, they connect those threads really well in that show, and I'll say that. And those are both like not planned, and they just sort of were like 2 drop threads, and then they connect them in really interesting ways in Deep Space Nine, and which is again what you were saying, Sarah, where it's like just you drop threads, and then you're suddenly like, oh, these things can connect here, or we can bring that forward, and that's good seat of your pants writing, yeah.
Or sometimes you get the temporal Cold War.
Look, all right, Star Trek Discovery is picking up that drop pants thread, and it did something slightly with it in season 3.
It's been a long road.
Getting from there to here, yeah.
I was just going to say, about the episode, that at first I wasn't on board with Traltix. First I was afraid. I was petrified. I wasn't on board with Traltix's character design because he definitely, I couldn't tell if he was an homage or a ripoff of Davros, but he was giving me Whovian vibes. Until he was on the fucking ceiling, and then I was all and he shot the lasers from his. I was all in at that point. I was like, I love this character design. This is beautiful.
I loved it design from the get-go. I was really quite like, wow, I was wowed by it.
He definitely looks like Davros wearing a Time Lord outfit. Right, kind of like the vibe. Yeah, it's just like wearing a Time Lord outfit, but he's Davros. Yeah.
Oh, that's how they did it, because I was thinking about that, because there's no way you'd be able to see none of that.
It's very good. I like the design, to be honest. Yeah,
it does seem to be leaning into the trope of I'm blind, so my other senses compensate.
Have a problem.
But
I'm not convinced.
But I'm not sure that I'm not sure that wasn't him selling a line.
Well, right, exactly.
Yeah. I don't trust a word that man says.
Well, and we also definitely got in an episode with a blind antagonist. We got an interesting conversation about eyesight and about kind of what you were saying earlier, Jesse, about like the non-specialness of John's eyes saving the day. And so like maybe Traltix was blind on one end of whatever sight spectrum they all exist on, but clearly he wasn't blind. And him being like, "Oh yeah, my other senses have compensated." Like that,
give me lasers.
That's rhetorical nonsense for the time, but wouldn't make any evolutionary sense for a species that was blind. So I think he was full of shit. I think he saw at some end of the spectrum.
Yeah, I think so too.
I was also immediately suspicious of him, but I think I was supposed to be, because like a lot of sci-fi television presents episode plots as these like mysteries to figure out and solve. But it was pretty obvious, at least to me from the get-go, that he was doing something fucky. And I liked that because it wasn't really about him. It was about what he does,
See, and that Farscape got me. So Farscape, Jesse, Farscape always subverts my expectations in ways that I enjoy. Because they were telegraphing so hard that he seemed suspicious, I was like, oh, okay, so he's not a villain. And then he
okay.
was.
Yep. That's always Farscape, which is why I like it.
And
Yeah.
he was going for it, what the villain did.
Mhm.
Yeah, and speaking of the subversion, it's just I was gonna say earlier, but then I forgot. I did do that and a lot, but this show I've realized is impossible to predict because it doesn't follow any kind of convention. It does its own thing every single time, and
Yes.
I love that. And
It's always
it's at the
zigs when
point
it
now-
it's always zigs when it's supposed to
Yeah.
zag, and I always love that. Yeah.
And now I'm just like, I don't care. I'm just gonna chill out and see what happens. Like I'm along for the ride. Fuck it. Let's do it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So, does anyone have anything on theme?
I guess the only theme would just be the biggest one would be, I guess you could talk about forgiveness a little bit, but that just sort of comes more at the end. But it's a nice sort of like tie into maybe larger ideas of the series about like these characters being hurt to traumatic, like people suffering trauma and like needing to forgive and not always being able to. So that kind of ties into the end. But also just like, again, the idea of like humans being ego driven, people like thinking we're the best when ultimately we're not, and we can still do like, and I think that could tie into like the larger idea of the series being like these are all very dysfunctional people who ultimately like are still able to do really great things despite the fact that they are not necessarily seen as the best ever, you know.
Mm-hmm.
I especially with all of the forgiveness scenes at the end, I definitely liked the notion that the people that we love can hurt us the most. Because like a lot of the shit that you know John and Aeryn were throwing at each other, and you know even as unfun as it was, the scene between John and Chiana, like those kinds of things were only possible because these characters know their own flaws and foibles so well, because they become this wacky dysfunctional family, you know, and so that's that vulnerability is kind of the price is the wrong word, but it's kind of the price of having those relationships. And in this episode, especially at the end, they really reaffirmed that price is worth paying in this instance. You know, that them being able to be there for each other and count on each other and lean on each other and forgive each other is what helps them to survive, you know. So that was what I got from it.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I think there is a sense, again, when we reflect from, you know, the sort of twin episode of Through the Looking Glass, when we had, you know, the only way out is through. And then this is, you know, friendships being tested. You know, and if you really love people, they survive the test.
I think
this doesn't really fit into theme, but I don't know where else to put this thought, so I'm just going to say it. We've seen this quite a few times now throughout the series, and I think I even said it in the last episode. But I love the camera work. There's this particular scene, the whole sequence with John, Dargo, and Chiana and Aeryn, the one where Dargo clocks John. There's this moment when the camera cuts between a close up of Dargo and Chiana and Aeryn and John, and their camera does this weird sort of like tilty motion where and I just love how that conveys what's going on in the scene, and that things are getting like really off kilter. I thought that was really clever, and I love when the show does stuff like that.
It was giving me like sea ship vibes.
Yeah. The camera is never still. It's a steady cam, I think, but it's not being steady. Like it is. It never. I started paying attention to it, and it was sort of liquid.
Be constantly flowing. Yeah,
that's a good way to put it. Yeah.
And the lighting was great.
I guess again later on with the reveal that Troltix was turning up the lights everywhere. This may not have been the case, but I didn't realize how many windows were on Moya. Because there were flags of the pulsars and the rooms were all bright. I was like, oh, there's a window in there.
Or I think it's Moya's bioluminescent.
Towards the end, that's what it was hinting at. Yeah.
So does anyone have anything else before we go to favorite parts? Okay. So Jessie, as our guest, you can go first. What is your favorite part of this episode?
I mean, I think it might be the same part that everyone likes is when he has them all sort of tied up and is just shooting the crackers. The crackers don't matter. And he just shoots them and they're all like, shocked you. And he has Troutix's name like written on the door and he like turns it. Like, I think that's just like that delivery. Ben Broder just went for it and it was great. And so, yeah, like that is my favorite quote in all of Farscape, to be honest, but the crackers don't matter. So yeah, that's easily my favorite moment by a hot mile.
My favorite moment: kill her, then we'll have pizza and margarita shooters. It is my favorite moment in the show to date, and it is now one of my favorite scenes in all of fiction. I just love it so much. I love it so much. I can't even describe why I love it. It's just silly and stupid and meta, and I just love it so much. Love it so much.
I think to me, both my favorite and also far and away the most Farscapey scene of the show so far is not just John in the outfit, but the fact that his outfit is made up of something that each character individually provided and brought to him.
Mm-hmm.
Like he's wearing Zhan's puke mask. He's got Aeryn's prowler shield, which I imagine she just went and like tore off the side of her ship. He's holding, Dargo's Qualta, and then Rigel brings him the cloak, and then Chiana brings him the cape, and then it's like he looks absurd. And that's the show. That's the show in a single shot.
Mm-hmm.
We're all gonna die.
It was great. I loved it. That is Farscape for me so far. I loved it.
Yeah, I do love that, and the Ride of the Valkyries. I'm having a hard time between choosing the Ride of the Valkyries humming and Aeryn. Look what you're doing. Oh, you're so right. You're so right. Too loud. I think I'm going with Aeryn.
Yeah.
That was just so good. Yeah. So, thank you for joining us, Jessie.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me. Yeah.
This is the perfect episode for you to guest on.
I when I saw it was up for an option because you gave me a couple options to be on, I was like, definitely this one, 100%.
Yeah, thanks for being here.
Appreciate it.
No, it was an honor to be here. I'm always happy to talk Farscape, so thank you so much for having me. I was really honored.
It's really great to have you. So next episode we will be discussing is called The Way We Weren't.
Oh boy.
Is this okay?
You two want to make any guesses?
I have a feeling I'm gonna get hurt, and I'm ready for it. Hurt me. I want you to hurt me, Daddy. Love it.
I remember what this episode was. I just had to look it up.
But that's the thing. I said it before. You can't predict this show, so
that's why it's fun when you try and get it wrong.
I'm taking either alternate reality or time travel.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll just say this: it's another personal favorite of this season. So.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm ready.
For very different reasons than this one.
Following
Jack did hurt.
Yeah, well, no spoilers.
Yeah, not saying
and following that will be Picture If You Will, which is one I think we will do a live react for the patrons. I think that will be one will be kind of fun for that.
Cool.
Yep.
So with that, Jessie, would you like to tell the folks where they can find you?
Yeah, I can tell my stuff, strut my stuff. I am Jessie Gender on YouTube. That's where I do my video essay type of things, where I do sort of like long form looks at pop culture and social and political issues through nerddoms and geekdoms. Trying to think of, like I said, I have my section Star Trek The Next Generation video on there. That's my fun one. I also do stuff about lately. My last few videos are a little bit darker topics, like looking at things like transphobia and like sort of people pushing transphobia and those sort of things. I think very helpful videos. I try to make them as fun as I possibly can, but obviously a bit darker, but I think are necessary ones. So check those out. I will have some more fun videos coming in the future. I need it for my own mental health. Beyond that, I'm also on Jessie Gender. I have a secondary channel called Jessie Gender After Dark, where I do news, reviews, and reactions. So I'm reviewing right now Star Trek Lower Decks, Star Wars Andor coming up, House of the Dragon, The Lord of the Rings of Power, and She-Hulk, Attorney at Law. So check that out. I have another podcast called Jumpgate, where I talk about Babylon 5 with Vera that I talked about earlier. And if you are a Farscape fan, I did What the Frel, which are all the episodes of Farscape already done, if you can't get enough of that. And I'm also on Nebula. And I'm on Twitter as Jessie Gender as well. So that's all my stuff. I do too many things. I'm tired.
Yeah, that's a mouthful.
Yeah. And I also am on GameSpot too. And I should sell that too, because I have a couple projects there that I'm going to be coming out with soon. So
yeah, and everybody should read your essay on Hogwarts Legacy rather than playing the game.
Yeah, thank you. I'm very proud of that article for GameSpot. So yeah.
And Jack, where can folks find you?
You can find me on Twitter at Lack of Surprise 1. That's all one word with the number 1 at the end. You can find me over on Discord on our Discord server, Howdy Poppets, I believe that is called. And you can find me on Instagram at Jack Kramme, lowercase, one word. Yeah, Josh, what about you, sir?
I just like to hang out over on Instagram at Josh Gosdin, all lowercase, and I'm over there just cooking things and talking about self-care.
Oh yeah,
and that's enough.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm Sara Ezzat. You can find me at the Costume Codex on YouTube. I've been in a bit of a burnout this last month, but I'm getting back into it. I got some scripts I'm working on, and I also just completed my podcast, the first series of 5 of my podcast that I did with Bren, who's been guested on this channel before, called Real Fat People, REEL, where with fat people talking about fat people on film. So hope to do another series of that at some point.
Is that Ren the Barbarian, the YouTuber?
That is Ren the Barbarian, our friend, the YouTuber. And you can also find me on Twitter, spouting random nonsense at Bluestock and Sara. And yeah, that's me.
Oh, yeah.
So that's all of us. So yeah, this has been a really good episode.
Mm-hmm. Good times. Thanks for being here, Jessie.
Cheers.
It was good to finally meet you.
Yes, thank you.
It was great to meet both of you, and it was an absolute honor to be on here. Likewise. And it was great to get to talk to Sara again, because Sara is always wonderful. So.
Yeah, it's good. We've a couple times we've chatted in person.
Mm-hmm. Hopefully the first 2 of many. And Newt is joining us at this last moment. Hey, bud.
Ah. Thanks, friends. Bye.
Bye, y'all.
Bye.
Oh, there's Newt. Newt popped in to say bye.
Right at the end. I'm still just gonna keep this Zoom mustache filter this entire time.
The Ted Lasso meets Ned Flanders.
Yeah, I also got the eyebrows too, which I put on as well. Those are also fake eyebrows.
It just fits. Like I don't know, it looks perfect. Like it doesn't look janky. It sits well. It just.
I was trying to do a cigarette, but then it disappears if I do that.
You rock a mustache better than I do.
I feel like I should be an inspector in a movie.
Really though, yeah.
A pipe and
just
a
get
monocle.
A pipe and a monocle.
You need an accent.
Tell me more about the murder. Yes.
The murder.
Tell me more about this murder.
I understand you've had some crimes.
I've come to understand that some sort of killing of the murdering kind has occurred.
And we have our outtake.
Somewhere there. I think we have a few.
Yeah.
Sounds good to me.
I'm ready for my close-up, Sara.
Sara is our host, our valiant and fearless producer.
turn off
I'm
my,
just here
my...
to drink coffee and look pretty.
You do that so
I'm all
well.
out of coffee.
I am. I just finished it. It's empty now.
Well, you do that so well, dear.
You do.
Thanks. I was joking. I'm really not that vain.
But
well, you should be. Also, your eyeshadow is amazing, by the way.
Yeah.
Thank
Jack,
you. I appreciate that.
Show us your nails,
Josh.
Show us your nails.
Ah! I'm knocking
I
shit
love
over.
See, you're pretty.
I don't know why I made that noise.
That was good.
That is the universal fingernail noise. Yeah.
Added to the aesthetic.
Yeah,
I painted them last night. I normally have them painted, but I haven't done it for a little while because I've been lazy. But I was like, no, we're recording tomorrow. We have a special guest. I want to look my best, and
then I'm just here with my mustache. You look really nice. You did a lot of great work, and then I'm just here like, I'm gonna be in the mustache.
You look great. You really do.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I should grow this out for real. You really confuse all the trans pubs. It's like, I'm a trans woman. I went through all this transition, but I really feel the mustache.
Oh, please do. I would love to.
There's a PCOS activist on TikTok who has the most fabulous beard.
I would
like.
love it,
I'd let mine grow if it would actually look good.
It's beautiful.
Beards
it's
are fun.
I love that. They got a message yesterday. Someone in my comment section was like, "You a trans woman? You look really confusing in that vest. You people can't really tell." And I'm like, "Good."
You look confusing. Thank you.
Yeah,
just a little bit of gender chaos.
Yeah, I'm so glad to confound you.
Yeah, if you can't tell what gender I am, I've succeeded.
my top was particularly befuddling. I'm glad.
If you are the kind of person who's going to comment that, then
I don't really care I don't care that I've confused you, or I do care, but only positively.